All right, here we go. Overdrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, and Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. How we feeling today? Everyone ready to get loud this afternoon? Loud and proud. Loud and proud.
I hope I do some things that get the appropriate reaction from you two.
Yes.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I have been called the captain of the show. The captain of Overdrive. People do call me that, right?
What if some people call me the assistant captain?
I'll grant you that. I want you as my assistant captain. I think that's great.
Feschuk, I'm curious before we get into the game last night and different items, what is the Doogie cologne meter saying today? Because I know you've got a taste of that last week.
Yeah. Stay loud, stay proud. Well, you know, Star Wars had the Clone Wars and Overdrive has the Cologne Wars.
Yes.
Right. And the war is on, man. Doogie is a very formidable force. He brings it daily, and I know you gave him that suggestion, O-Dog, last week that maybe he should tone it down.
It wasn't a suggestion. It was kind of a mandatory type of thing where I just said, it can't happen anymore. Like, I'll go to J-Mac if I have to. And if for people that don't know, that's the guy at the top. I'll launch a complaint against this guy's cologne use.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say today, I don't think he's taking your order very seriously. Like, he's pretty committed to his cologne, man.
Yeah, man. He says, like, Doogie has convinced us, and I find it almost impossible to believe, but he continues to commit to this line that he will spray 5 different kind of colognes at different times of the day.
No, dude.
Yes.
He sticks with one, and he does a 4-pack of squirts at work.
I don't know.
He doesn't go in. He doesn't have a duffel bag with a buffet.
I think he might.
Like a guy opening up a jacket in Times Square. He only goes with one cologne, and it's a 4-spot of squirts.
Stay loud, stay proud.
I'm telling you, man. He's like Brian Fantana from Anchorman. Remember when in his office he opens up the door and like Sex Panther comes out and all these different types of colognes? That's like, Doogie, man.
It's like you open up the O-Dog's trunk and he's got like 15 putters in there.
That's right.
Doogie's got like 15 colognes.
That's exactly it. O's got putters. Doogie's got colognes.
Yep.
But, he's got his Thursday. He's got his midwinter mist on today. That's what it's called, midwinter mist. He's setting a tone, and it was great. And he's been here all day. I had a chance to catch up with Jesse Marsh earlier this morning, the head coach of the men's national team. Jesse will join us later this afternoon. We'll play that. Really compelling guy, really compelling interview. We're just over 500 days out from the World Cup, coming to the shores of Canada, right? Yeah. Games at BMO, games out in Vancouver, and so that's gonna be fun to hear from him a little bit later on. And Mark Masters will join us. And Mark, he was down at Scotiabank last night. And I thought the Leafs played great in the first period. I thought they were phenomenal in the first period. And Merzlikins stood on his head. Mm-hmm. Hildeby couldn't counter. Hildeby really struggled. I do wonder if that's it for Hildeby, and Matt Murray's going to come out until they wait for Stolarz to return. And they need Stolarz to return, but much like every other team in the league, it's very difficult to be 3 or 4 goalies deep. At some point, your one guy's going to have to get a breather like Woll did last night. And now they got a pretty soft schedule coming up. They got Ottawa on Saturday, and then Minnesota on Wednesday, and then Edmonton next Saturday. So Woll's going to play the next 3 games.
Yes.
So you don't really have to worry about goaltending. But that game started last night with an unbelievable fight. Like, that was such a good fight. Reaves and Olivier are both heavyweights. Ryan Reaves' first fight of the season, and they were throwing haymakers at each other, and both were connecting. Like, both got hit, and it was just a great fight. Yet it was 90 seconds into the game, 90 seconds, premeditated off the draw. So not in reaction to a bad hit, not later in the game where you could feel it building up, not after a great shift or a great forecheck. Premeditated 90 seconds in on a Wednesday night with Columbus in town. So I'm not overly surprised that it didn't get a crazy reaction. I'm more surprised that Matthews addressed it.
Yeah.
Here's what Auston Matthews had to say about the way the crowd reacted to the fight last night.
It was great, obviously. I mean, that's still a big part of the game, and he's a big part of this team. And you love to see that. Would have liked a little more energy, from the crowd after that. I thought, it was a little quiet tonight. especially after, a guy, two guys like that go at it.
So that, I will say, that is the first thing that I can recall him saying as the captain this year that makes me take a step back and say, that's an interesting comment from the captain of the team. Because
why not make the comment, though, Hayes? Nobody else does. It's just us that comment on it. Joe Bowen might make a comment. None of the players are always like, that ain't for me. I ain't touching that. But Auston Matthews is one guy with enough clout where he could say, maybe a little more juice would be okay. I don't have a problem with that. Maybe it'll wake them up a little bit on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. Is there something wrong with that?
Yeah, listen, here's how I think you got to be fair to an extent. It was 90 seconds into the game.
People were still taking their seats.
Exactly. This building on a Wednesday with the weather being what it is, people are it's hard to get into the building, and it's just a reality. I think a lot of people either weren't in their seats, or if they were, they're like, what just happened? How did this just take place? And Austin's been here for 9 years. He knows the way this crowd operates. But I agree with what you're saying, that I kind of like that he's willing to say it, because why not take a little bit of a jab? And I know what the reaction from a lot of fans are going to be. You want to take a jab at your ownership, because the prices are so exorbitant, a lot of people can't get in that building. Right. That's accurate. And Austin's never going to do that. He's never going to say, hey, I'm going to start, we need a symposium here to go over ticket prices to get Joe Fan in the building. Austin's not doing that anytime soon.
I'm going to give back $1 million of my salary to make tickets cheaper.
No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But I kind of like that he's, sticking up for his guy, because I think he realizes that was a big one for Ryan Reaves. He hadn't fought all year. A lot of people have been circling him. Do you not want to go anymore? Where are you at? Olivier's a beast that can fight. Oh, yeah. And it was a great fight. And I think if you're a player, and you could speak to this, you have an appreciation for a guy that early into the game taking bombs off the face. And you would hope there would be a reaction. And the only explanation I can think for why there wasn't was because of where it was in the game. Because generally speaking, in my lifetime, going down to that building or the Gardens, Wednesday night against Columbus is bound to be sleepy. It'll get pretty loud from a great goal, and it always got loud for fights.
Oh, yeah.
It always, generally speaking, was a building that got crazy when there were fights. And
especially fights after, a shift where there was multiple big hits and there was a build-up to it.
Yes, big time. Big time.
Yeah,
but I thought there was a response, guys. I thought they played well.
I thought they played great.
They dummied the Columbus Blue Jackets. And as soon as Fantilli scored that first goal, I said, I know exactly what I'm going to be watching here in another hour and a half. Mm-hmm. This is going to be 3-1 or 4-1, because every time they go down the ice on an odd man rush, they're going to put it in the back of the net, and it's completely deflating. But through a period and a half, the whole game, I thought they completely owned the Columbus Blue Jackets, with the exception of a series of shifts where they needed a save from their goaltender and they couldn't get it. That Fantilli wrist shot and a couple of these plays around they weren't going in Merzlikins. But it brings me back to another point, and I swear to God it's the last time I'm going to bring it up. I don't know if they would have won that game anyway last night, because they only got one, okay? But a guy needing a break with days in between games, it just bothers the hell out of me, man. It's not the job. I don't know. As a forward, it's you got to play 82 games. Or the best of your ability. And it just makes me, and I don't want to sound like that old grizzled, but I used to see guys so mad when they were healthy scratched. It was their life was on the line. And there's so many guys, forwards, defensemen, and goaltenders throughout the league, they don't care about missing games. It honestly makes me sick. They do not care about missing games. Guys fighting for their life in fourth-line positions are yeah, I just don't feel 100%. What on earth are you talking about, man? This is all through the league.
Yeah.
They don't care about missing games. I find that crazy. That's not the job.
Well, it's a very valid point. I don't know if I would look at it as they don't care. It's that they've been programmed to believe, and maybe it's one and the same.
What do you mean they don't? They don't care. They don't care to miss games. It does. Maybe it's not that they don't. It doesn't bother them.
That's it. Exactly. I think what they're programmed to believe, and we're talking about Joseph Woll here, to be clear, why he didn't play last night.
Yeah.
Is and goalies in particular are programmed now to believe, just like pitchers in baseball, you couldn't possibly be asked to do something like that. Like, that's the programming of sport now. So I don't even blame the goalies because I think they hear it from the goalie coach and the goalie consultant and the head coach and the GM and the president.
I know, but does the goalie coach not say to the goalie or whoever the player is in different situations, that's not how Connor Hellebuck, that's not his code of conduct. So what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are some guys who are throwbacks. Some guys are throwbacks, and I would like to believe, and maybe this doesn't exist anymore, and I think this is what you're driving at as well, the idea that using Woll as the example, it's a storm in, right? It's a Ricky Vaughn, did you just cut me storm in, there's no way I'm not playing type of routine. And, beyond that, yesterday, speaking of Reaves and Woll, like Woll didn't practice with the team yesterday.
Yeah, he's missed a bunch of practices.
And he was smiling and laughing by the boards, and Reaves pointed that out. He's like, oh, it must be nice to not have to practice, let alone play.
Yeah, and Reaves was calling Joe Woll Joe Embiid.
Yes, he's like, maybe I should start calling this guy Joe Embiid. Because, he can't even practice, and then he's not playing the next day, and he looks so happy to not be out there. And
yeah, it's a bit much, and it's hard for people to take. And I completely hear where you're coming from, but it's changed so much now.
I know, but Dave, think about what Hayes just said. He called Hellebuck a throwback goalie. He plays 55 to 60 games. It's not like he's Grant Fuhr and plays 74.
Well, and it's understood they're not playing back-to-back. Like, no one's playing back-to-back. That's just understood.
Okay, I get that. But if there's days in between, why the hell aren't you playing?
But
it goes back to a bigger picture where it's like, I don't know if they were getting 2 on Merzlikins last night anyway.
Possibly
They tried their damnness. It just bugs me that you look at the crappy goals and it's like, I get it. It's Columbus on a Wednesday. But you know what? They're not a bad team. So why the hell isn't the number one goalie in there?
Yeah.
Stupid.
I think I was talking to somebody the other day, an executive in another sport, and he said to me, I was asking about injuries and why it's kind of out of control in certain sports. And his thing was, well, yeah, in some ways, guys get hurt more. There's no doubt about it in certain sports. But there's also this whole industry of people making a lot of money claiming that they can keep your players healthy, right? They sell themselves as people that can keep people healthy. And so they got a lot on the line. That sports science wing of the teams, and the Leafs have one. I think
it's the most overrated thing in sports. All you hear is the Blue Jays Sports Science Facility. It's state of the art, and guys get injured left, right, and center. It's like, what are they doing that's so state of the art? I think it's nonsense.
But now you've got a pressure on that sports science department to keep Joe Woll healthy, right? Because we all know he's got a history. He couldn't show up to Game 7 last year because he got hurt in Game 6. Was aiming to be the number one guy and got hurt mid-season and had to take a bunch of time off. So I do think that that's a big factor here, that you've got people employed to keep this guy healthy, and they're being extra cautious. And to your point, it kind of goes against the grinder mentality and the tradition of the game, which is the number one guy should play if he can play.
I don't even go with grinder mentality, gentlemen. I just go with I said it earlier, it's the job. Like, you want to be a number one goalie in the NHL, you got to play 50 games. If you're a 30-game starter, you're not a starting goaltender and a stud in the NHL. And how on earth would you ever play in the playoffs? Not possible.
Yeah. Listen, and a lot of the strategy is just simply prevention, right? It's not even that they're seeing anything. It's that it might happen at some point, so we better not play them. And that applies. I think it's out of control when it comes to pitching more than anything. Well, we better not let him throw more than 80 because maybe in August his arm will fall off. Based on what?
Yeah.
Like, based on what science do you have that says if this guy throws too many pitches on April 4th, he can't complete a game in August, or September? But they've all just bought into it. And using Hellebuck as an example, and again, this is the cream of the crop. Hellebuck is a throwback. Whether we like it or not, it's just a reality. He started 38 games already this year. 60 last year, 64 the year before, 66 the year before that.
I think 60-something is the number one goalie.
Yeah,
what are other comparables?
But only three guys got 60-plus in last year. I mean, 3 guys in the league. It's just there's a lot of guys that are getting 50 and thinking that's a big workload.
Yeah. Well, and listen, the game has changed in terms of the chaotic nature of it, post to post. We had Jake Allen on last week, and it's you can see it. Guys, goalies are getting more knee injuries, hip injuries, like that. That is reality, and some of it is wear and tear, of course. But you would think also with the ability to look at the schedule where you have the Leafs now have 2 days off, then they play, then they have 3 days off, then they play, then 2 days off. Like, there's not that many games the Leafs have coming up here.
Yeah.
But even with that said, listen, Hildeby, he was sent down today. I don't know if that's a paper transaction or what. I would think Matt Murray likely comes up for the road trip when they hit Edmonton next week, and he may be backing up in Ottawa or against Minnesota next week. But Hildeby's not ready. It's very clear cut. He's not ready, so they're going to make an adjustment on that. Yet Merzlikins was great. Like, he was great. And the Columbus story was a really cool one. Fantilli's a local guy. Del Belbaluz is a local guy. Their parents are in the stands. The cameras were on them all night. It was an incredibly cool story at the expense of the Maple Leafs and expense of Maple Leaf fans. But in the end, I thought the Leafs had a great first period. And for the most part, they outplayed Columbus all night. It's going to happen. And that's another thing about Matthews coming out saying what he said. I like that he's willing to say it. And I think a lot of Leaf fans will love hearing that too, because this has been a constant conversation in the city forever. The fans down at this rink. But it's always been the case with Toronto. It's never not going to be the case. It goes back to the 50s and 60s and 70s. There's a famous clip of Pat Quinn when he got to Vancouver talking about how he hopes the fans in Vancouver are going to be loud because the ones in Toronto aren't that loud and they sit on their hands. That was in like 1967 or something.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. So I think a lot of Leaf fans are going to love that he said this. Some of the cynics out there, and I understand why they're steeped in cynicism based on the history of this team, will look at it and say, well, Auston, your team just got pumped 5-1.
Right.
Like, maybe pick your spots a little bit better. After you win 5-1 and it's not that loud, speak up. Why are you talking about the fans when you just lost to Columbus? Which is, I understand that side of it as well.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Like, you remember, like 92, speaking of picking spots, like 92, probably the most famous call for noise in this city's history. It was Dave Winfield, right? In September of 92. Winfield wants noise.
That's right.
A sign that somebody brought to the park in the run-up to 2 straight World Series.
There
right?
he is. Look at the shades on that guy.
And Winfield, in an interview with Jim Proudfoot, the late Jim Proudfoot of the Toronto Star, made a lot of points about how, look, this was a 40-year-old veteran. He'd been around Major League Baseball. He was producing. He had 100 RBIs and 26 home runs that year. I mean, and he was basically saying, look, we go to the Metrodome in Minneapolis. It sounds like there's 747s running through the place. We could create that here in this dome. This is the 8th wonder of the world. It was the Sky Dome was new and fresh, and he just made the point, like, I've been around baseball, like, we could be louder. And guess what? People got louder. It worked.
I also remember my first game playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs at home. At the start of the second period, I remember looking at the lower bowl thinking, this is insane.
Nobody here?
It's insane that this is the Leafs, and it's like a big game, and no one's in their seat in the lower bowl. I found that to be crazy when I first saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah, it's a different experience, man. And like you said, Dave Winfield said that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it still rings out here. And maybe this will spark something. I'm not going to hold my breath. But generally speaking, fans do have a very, very noticeable reaction to fights, I have found. Historically, fights get people up off their seats. So I'm a bit surprised by that last night. Again, I think it's that it was so early in the game. But fights and goals, everything in between can be crickets in there. Fights and goals generally get the place going. And if it's a Saturday night against a rival or a playoff game, generally it's pretty loud and pretty good. But, we'll see if Matthews gets what he's hoping for here. I would say, and again, I'm not holding my breath, if he wants that place to really get crazy, he should drop his gloves.
Yeah.
He gets into a fight at Scotiabank Arena, that place will go nuts.
No doubt.
I guarantee you that. Like, if it's a reaction, Marner gets hit and he comes flying in and his gloves go off, that place, the roof would explode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he's going to hurt his hand, and everyone's going to say that Bryan Hayes is such an idiot.
You're going to blame me now? You're going to blame me for something that you know isn't going to happen anyway?
That's just the way it would work.
Yeah, I know. I'll
if
take
it's
the
been
blame.
9 years and he hasn't dropped the gloves yet,
he's not fighting.
No, he's not fighting. I always thought that every player, including myself, would get to a point where it's like, I guess it's going to happen, but it ain't happening. It's been 9 years. He ain't doing it.
How would you rank the likelihood, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, likelihood to fight?
I would have Nylander 1, Marner 2, and Matthews 3.
You'd have Matthews 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have Marner 3. I think
I'd go Mitch 3.
I don't think it's in Marner. I really don't.
I could see Mitch Marner getting in a fight against like Brad Marchand or somebody.
Okay.
Ooh, that would be a reaction. That's a better question. Again, presuming health, everyone survives, so it's not my fault. Who would these guys fight at Scotiabank to get that place go? I do. Marner versus Marchand would be number one.
Marchand
I think
against anybody would be number one. Right?
Matthews, McDavid, where would that rank?
Oh.
Where would
Center
Matthews,
ice,
McDavid?
Saturday night, Matthews, McDavid.
Folks at a
Although it'd probably be the worst fight you've ever seen.
It probably would be.
McDonald's fries at each other.
It would be. I think they share the same agent, too. He'd be probably running on the ice like, hey, boys, what are we doing here? Everyone just relax. We've got a McDonald's campaign we're going through. We want everyone to get along here. But, yeah, I don't know. I think Matthews, McDavid would be high. I think Marner, Marchand would be high. I think Nylander, Pasternak would be an interesting one. Although I don't know how many people are connected to that. Like, I think Leaf fans understand their history. That's never going to happen because they're close friends.
Best buddies.
Okay. So take that one out.
That would be a tough one.
Like, I don't think anyone. You don't want to see any of these guys fight like Brady Tkachuk or anything.
No, but you'd like to see somebody take down a nemesis, like take down a Matthew Tkachuk, right? Like
that's one right there. Willie and Matthew Tkachuk.
There you go.
That now we're talking.
Everybody talks about how strong Willie is. He's got a man's body, man's hands.
Pasternak fought him in the playoffs.
The hair on his chest every day and how built he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he should be able to take on anybody.
Yeah. Pasternak fought him in the playoffs, and I thought he held up pretty well. Like, it wasn't great. Kachuk's clearly going to be a more comfortable fighter.
More experienced
fighter. But anyway, we've got – I don't know what to expect in Edmonton tonight. Where Edmonton and Vancouver are playing. Conor Garland's obviously in the lineup. McDavid isn't. Tyler Myers isn't.
Garland's an interesting one because he's like a diminutive little guy, and it's just like, who's going to go after and like jump him and beat the living piss out of him? It's like, wow, great job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not a big guy.
At the end of the day, all he was doing was holding Connor McDavid. Like, is somebody out for retribution on holding Connor McDavid? Is that what we're talking about here? That's kind of silly, isn't it?
Someone should be.
For holding McDavid.
Well, he was in his jockstrap. Oh, I mean, you gotta give the best player in the league some respect, don't you? I mean, back off.
All right, then I feel bad for him because some's going after him.
I don't know. I mean, it's probably Corey Perry would be the guy. Like, more than likely, it's Corey Perry. I don't know who else. Like, Darnell Nurse isn't a fair fight, and neither is really Corey Perry. Perry's had how many fights in his career? 30 fights? Like, he can fight.
He can fight.
So, and Garland's the kind of guy that I think would actually be okay with it, and he'd probably be willing to fight if he feels he has to. And he might do okay because he is a scrappy guy. He's just not very big. He's like 5'7". Like, he's one of the smallest guys in the league. But I'm not sure what to expect because Rick Tockett's saying, we don't care what anyone has to say or how Edmonton fan. Rick Tocchet would fight. Rick Tocchet would happily step on the ice and fight anybody. But Conor Garland, do we have that clip? Let's hear what he had to say earlier today. He was asked about, fan reaction in Edmonton and kind of what he can expect tonight.
You seem to be public enemy number one in Edmonton now. Do you actually like that idea?
I do not care. I just try to just play each and every day, and just give forth a good effort, every day in practice and games.
If the crowd's on you tomorrow night, though, does that fire you up a bit?
I don't care.
Okay. I don't know if he doesn't care. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Well, what is he going to say? Like, why would he care? He's just got to know it's going to be an intense game.
Mm-hmm.
You got to just know what's going on, be aware of the situation, and his teammates obviously better know what the hell's going on out there.
But
you go out with a bunch of dum-dums that don't know what's going on. You leave him in the corner with four guys. You're an idiot.
That's a very good point.
But, speaking of, picking your spots and riling up a crowd, I mean, it's about the easiest thing you could do if you were an Edmonton Oiler tonight, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And conversely, if you're Garland, go out there and
keep it going.
Keep it going.
Continue to disturb the
throw
dome.
a big hit, stick somebody, spray the goalie, do something stupid, and all of a sudden
up your bench.
That bench, and it'll be lively in Edmonton tonight. You can bank on that. All right, Mark Masters coming up in the building last night. His take on how everything played out, what Matthews said post-game. Also, waiting on Matthew Knies, like he left the game last night. It's tough. They reported it as an upper body injury as to why he wasn't returning. It didn't look like much to me. I couldn't.
Lower body.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I couldn't quite figure out what was going on there. But We'll see if we've got any news on Knies and what ends up happening with the goaltending position as we move forward. Because, again, I don't think Hildeby's going to be a part of this program moving forward. He will be with the Marlies, and he may play again with the Leafs, but I doubt he's backing up come the weekend. So Masters coming up. We've got Bruce Boudreau on the show. Bruce is coming up just after 5 o'clock. We've got a bunch of games tonight. Ottawa's in Boston. You got the Habs in Detroit. Edmonton, Vancouver tonight. And we'll get to a number of things with Bruce a little bit later this afternoon as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star, Mark Masters coming up, Bruce Boudreau. I've got a list we're going to get to today. Jesse Marsh will join us a little bit later this afternoon, head coach of the men's national team. And shout out Rory McIlroy as well. It was announced officially today, RBC Canadian Open. Rory's coming back.
DPC Toronto.
DPC Toronto. Tickets are up, on sale, go time. I mean, it's such a cool vibe when Rory McIlroy's here. And to his credit, he says every year he loves the tournament, loves coming back, and he always will come back, and he follows through on that.
I'm sure somebody makes it worth his time.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's happy to come up here for multiple reasons, but I think he loves...
Want to come out and play a little 18-hole warm-up somewhere off-site, and I'll shove an envelope in your bag?
No, that wouldn't happen.
I don't know.
I don't think so. I refuse to believe that. I think he loves Canada, and he loves the idea of playing at TPC, right? Osprey Valley.
Right.
It's going to be awesome, man. Just get your head out of the clouds, dude. He's ready to play.
Got
Can't
plenty
wait.
of money, He makes his choices very carefully based on where he wants.
Everyone shows up for the right
Everyone's
price,
happy, and everyone's just men of integrity. That's what it is.
What it is.
That's what Mark Masters does.
Yep.
Right? Mark, he wouldn't take a bribe for anything.
No.
There's no possible way you could find anything that would allow Mark to say, you know what, I'll accept that and I'll do something I don't usually do.
What if Mark Rowe handed him an envelope with $5,000 in it and said, gas Jonas and never speak with Jonas again and be my trivia partner next time?
Mark, how would you answer that?
Listen, I don't accept a bribe. I'm a man of integrity, but certainly opening to partnering up with Mark Rowe, considering the track record Jonas and I have. So it wouldn't be about the money for me. It's about the trivia. It's always been that way. And my credentials.
No, but would you take the money? Would you take the money?
You might as well take the money.
No, I wouldn't take the money.
No?
I'd want to. No, it's not about the money.
All right.
No, it would cheapen it actually. So no, I wouldn't take the money.
Before we get to the
Leafs, I don't
Leafs,
want that money.
the Djokovic and Zverev tonight, right? Semifinal, Australian Open.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like Djokovic, what is he, 7th or 8th ranked, I believe, in terms of the ranking system. I know that has to do with world rankings and how much you're playing and all that. Yet he's a huge favorite tonight to win. And this guy's won 10 Australian Opens. Like I knew he had won a lot, and I know he's won more slams than anybody. But there's nothing that you can compare this to.
No.
This guy might win his 11th Australian Open. Like, how do you put that into perspective, Masters? If you can at all.
It's hard to. Obviously, Rafa Nadal's dominant at Roland Garros is unmatched. But this is Djokovic's role. This is his home slam. That's why he'd have another one if he hadn't gotten deported, if you remember, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's incredible. His numbers would be even better. Like, he had the freak default at the U.S. Open where he accidentally hit a ball that struck an umpire in the throat. He probably would have won that U.S. Open, and he would have won probably the Australian Open that he got deported before, which is a strange sentence to say. But, yeah, I'm a little surprised that he's a heavy favorite. I'm not sure what the odds are there, but he had a bit of a leg issue in an incredible win against Alcaraz. What a match that was. And it felt like if Alcaraz was able to force a fifth set, Djokovic would be in big trouble. But this is his happy place, Australia. That's kind of his home court. So, yeah, Zverev, he's kind of owned in recent years, especially at the majors. And, I can understand why he's a favorite. I don't know if he'd be the biggest favorite just because of the health concern, but this is his fortress of solitude, so to speak, down under.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, heavy favorite's maybe a bit of a stretch, but he is definitely a favorite. He is 100% a favorite tonight. We asked the question because we've been talking about fighting and Auston Matthews and his reaction to it. You're around these guys all the time. How would you rank the likelihood of these guys getting into a fight? Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. How would you rank 1, 2, 3 most likely to get in a fight in their NHL career?
Wow. That's a tough one. Matthews has already technically had
I
one.
know. The Stamkos one doesn't count, though, in the playoffs.
Want to have it.
That wasn't a fight.
Stamkos initiated it and kind of forced it. So I'm kind of wondering, I can't see it happening with Marner. It just Matthews with his size and just he has had those moments recently where he has hit back at times. Feel like he would be the most likely to engage in that. Nylander did have that sequence. I remember Sheldon Keefe made a big deal that he got a roughing penalty. Actually, it was against Columbus, I think, during his headline. I remember. He said,
Think about that.
Yeah.
A roughing penalty.
I would say it's Matthews, just the size. I think that, and because he's targeted sometimes, Marner rarely gets hit. Same thing with Nylander. They're kind of shiftier guys. I would kind of rank it as Matthews, Nylander, Marner.
Okay.
I would go in that way because I'm not sure. Nylander does have that roughing penalty, so.
Yes, he does have that. You cannot forget about that roughing penalty against Columbus when Sheldon Keefe was the coach.
He was loving it.
Yeah.
They lost. He said he liked that penalty. So anyway, it would be Matthews for me. Just the size, I think he could do it. He really seems to love it, though, right? I think part of the reason he made that comment last night is he was sticking up for Reaves a bit. Mm-hmm. He thinks that's part of the game, and he embraces it. So I would go Matthews number one. Is that what you guys kind of thought?
Yeah, we were all conflicted. I think O had Willie, I think, at 1, and maybe Marner at 2. I mean, in reality, we're not holding our breath that any of these guys are going to fight anytime soon. But the reason it came up was I said, you want to see the roof pop off. If Auston Matthews got into a fight down at Scotiabank Arena, that place would go crazy. If he dropped the gloves, he was the one kind of instigating the whole thing or reacting to something. But you just said it, your impression of why he said what he said about not getting enough fan reaction or energy out of it was him more sticking up for Reaves as opposed to anything else, or was there some sort of deeper messaging that he was hoping to get across?
Well, I guess you could look at it and try and speculate. There was those couple games where they were booed recently on home ice that I'm sure did not sit well and they didn't enjoy. And certainly Marner and Nylander had comments to the point where Marner, I think, said you just got to ignore the boos, and Nylander said they can boo, but we know we're a good team. So I'm sure they didn't love getting booed on home ice. They got 19 home wins, most in the NHL. They've also played more home games than a lot of teams. But so maybe that's an undercurrent to this, and they've won 3 in a row. But I think probably the bigger thing is just, Reaves has been looking for a fight. He gets dismissively kind of waved off by Arbor Jacki over the weekend, and it's a midweek game. Jackets in town, building maybe not as, fuzzy as it would be on most nights, and Reaves goes out there and fights a pretty tough customer, and, the crowd got a little into it, but it could have been maybe in Matthews' mind, and it probably could have been a bit louder and a bit more of an electric atmosphere, and so I think, that's probably why. Reaves is a beloved teammate, and he's that was the question, right? Was what did you think of what Reaves did? And that was where he took the answer in part, at least. So I do think that probably that's a little bit of the motivation there.
Masters, can you explain to me, just put it into perspective, the Joseph Woll workload from where you're sitting? What is it? If he was a number one, a true number one, is he playing 40 games a year? Is he play 3 or 4, then he's just got to back off a little bit? Just explain the rationale behind what his schedule will be moving forward, or what it is.
Right. It is going to be interesting to see how they manage the goaltending. They got 6 games now before the Four Nations break. No back-to-backs. Next one's at home. Next one's on the road in Ottawa. Then they have a break until Wednesday of next week at home against Minnesota. Then they head out to Western Canada, and Seattle's in there. So you could just ride him. I asked him today. We spoke to Joseph Woll today.
Is that possible, Masters? The idea of riding the goaltender.
Sure. Don't you need to find out if he becomes the number one in the playoffs, he's going to be playing every other night? I mean, I guess it's a bit of a tenuous time just because Stolarz is out still, and his return is not imminent. So you don't want to be stuck in a situation where it's a Hildeby Murray tandem, but it is possible. I thought he'd been rolling pretty well. I know the puck had been going in, but he had been, I thought his performance on Saturday in Montreal was really good. He's been putting together. He was the better goalie in the game against Tampa. He's been, he had the 3-game winning streak going. So I was wondering. I thought maybe they give him practice off. they were going to stick with him for the game last night. And I asked him today, I said, what did you think of getting a break? And he said, my reading his answer was he didn't want a break. He said, it's weird when you're in a rhythm and you don't want to come out. You're feeling good. But then he said, I understand they want me to, feel good, body, mind, all that. So I guess it's a balance. I guess 5 games in 9 nights, maybe, you don't want to push it, but obviously goaltending was a big story last night, and you can wonder if that Fantilli shot doesn't go in and the Leafs are able to get the first goal somehow, maybe it changes things. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I would imagine if Woll's looking good and feeling good, you just ride him the rest of the way. Matt Murray's coming up. I think I was just looking at his AHL stats, 1 goal allowed in his last 3 games, 2 shutouts. So we'll see if they mix him in there. But I see, just based on hearing from him and how he's looked, I see no reason why they can't ride him.
Well, I was going to ask you, Masters, what do you think the viability of Matt Murray really is? It seems to me that if they sort of laid out their plan preseason, Murray was their number 3 guy in their mind, and then, of course, injuries and such conspired against that at times. But what do you think Matt Murray still has left from what you've seen with your own eyes?
Well, I mean, it didn't go, he had 2 games with the Leafs, didn't go swimmingly, I guess, and that's why it was Hill to be back here. But you can only go by what you're seeing recently, and based on the reports, he's been good with the Marlies. Listen, when you get down to your number 3 and 4 goaltender on the depth chart, you're probably not having huge expectations for those guys going into a season, unless you got a younger guy, and Murray kind of on the with the potential coming up, who needs probably more development. Brew acknowledged that last night, that this is a guy who probably should be playing regularly and not sitting around. His last game was January 11th before last night, so not an easy position to throw him into there, whereas a guy like Murray is more of a veteran and maybe can handle that. So I don't know. It's a wild card, right? That's why you're a little queasy about it, and that's why we're talking about why can't Woll just kind of go with it. So I'm not sure really what to expect from that Murray, or if he can kind of find something here and get back to somewhat what he was in his previous times in the NHL.
With Mark Masters, what is your read on the Matthew Knies situation?
Well, we didn't see him on the ice at the Easter Steel Skate, but we spoke to Steven Lorentz, and I just asked him, how's Knies holding up? And he said, I've seen him today. It doesn't look like it's going to be serious. He's got, he's a big guy, extra layer of muscle there, and he indicated he's just a little banged up and doesn't plan to be out long. So, obviously, Lorentz, not a doctor, but that's at least something positive, something new. Berube didn't speak to the media today. We'll get a better indication on tomorrow after practice. I would imagine he's going to miss at least, a game for sure, just because he wasn't able to continue in that game last night. And then they do have the break. The schedule lightens up a bit, which probably helps, but he's a hard guy to replace, especially the way he had been playing here of late. The top line, I don't know, what do you do there? Is this the time where Max Domi gets back beside Matthews and Marner, and maybe that somehow sparks him? Certainly he hasn't earned a promotion, but he's found a way with Matthews in the past. Maybe that unlocks something for him if that's the way they need to go. But the injuries are piling up front right now. Max Pacioretty, John Tavares, Connor Dewar. So the depth is being tested once again up front, and Knies in particular, he's a tough guy to fill that void. Plays on both special teams. Does so many things. I thought he was having another good game last night. He drew that penalty, and even the player he gets hurt on, he's trying to initiate a check there. So that's a tough injury for the Leafs.
Yeah, and I believe the first shift they tested out Nick Robertson with Matthews and Marner when Knies was out. That must have had Max Domi looking around, being like, "What's going on here? Get me up there." But
because they've never done that really. Robertson with those guys, we've never seen that. And there's another guy who probably hasn't earned that. That's the issue. I guess McMahon could go up there, but then all of a sudden, what's the second line look like, and who's William Nylander playing with? And they could always put Nylander up there, but then you really don't have much below that. So I'll be intrigued to see how they handle this absence tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, Mark. Good stuff. Thank you for doing this.
Of course, anytime.
Mark Masters, one half of Team Corsi, famously from Trivias of the past.
Open to changes on Team Corsi.
Yeah, he had no issue with kicking Jonas to the curb.
That was shocking.
Did not think twice about punting Jonas Siegel.
He talks a tough game, though, when Jonas isn't around, because whenever Jonas is present or situations like that. Oh, Jonas would be great if we got. And then as soon as he's not around, he's like, I would love to do that without him.
I know.
He is a backstabber.
Yeah, he will quickly throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
And
can't trust him.
No.
Can't win with him.
No, you can't. Can't do it. Can't do it.
I don't know. He's cutthroat. I like that about him.
Yeah, you got to give him credit from that standpoint. He is a winner.
It's all about winning.
Yeah,
you believe him when he says he wouldn't take the money? I don't.
No.
I think he's a snake deep down.
I mean, if you're going to go with the other guy anyway, you might as well take the money.
Exactly.
Why not? Yeah, and what was interesting about last night, based on what we were talking about yesterday, we were, Matthews chasing Willie or chasing Draisaitl. He snuck one in last night again. Yeah. Like, Matthews is up to 20 on the season. He's 8 behind Nylander. 33 games left.
14 behind Draisaitl.
14 behind Draisaitl.
Telling you, the old mini Jerry will pop up and bite you.
Yeah, that mini Jerry, man, and that's just position, right? He just got inside, and he's like, no one's moving me.
Do it.
Yeah, no one's moving me. That's the beauty of him when he's playing well. And when he's on fire in terms of goal scoring, he's going to do it in so many different ways.
When you got a big man in front like that, like Dougie Gilmour did it to perfection when Dave Andrechuk would post up in front of the net. It was like, just like chip that into a little area. Most of the times it was tape to tape where it's just a slam dunk, but you get a big man like that with some reach, just get it. He's going to bang it in.
Right, he'll find it.
He's going to find it, man.
Yeah. But, yeah, there's Matthews. Now he's a goal behind Darryl Sittler for second all-time.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, look at how many – he's played 248 less games than Sittler.
Yeah.
Like, that's more than 3 full seasons less than Darryl Sittler, and he's going to pass him likely this weekend, if not certainly by next week. And I don't think he catches Sundin this year. Sundin's at 420. He's got to score 32 more the rest of the way. That seems unlikely in 33 games, but –
could be done.
He's got, 9 goals in 10 games since returning. Yeah. Like, he's back to looking like the guy who's going to score every single night. And if he does, that's a great sign for him. It's a great sign for the Leafs. It's a great sign if you're American, because all of a sudden it's quieted down. Will he go to the Four Nations? I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, no. Looks good, plays good, looks healthy. He's going to go. He's going to go play. That would be my assumption as of today. If there's a setback between now and the tournament, then all bets are off. It could be a completely different conversation. But if he's playing like this and he's healthy, he's going to play in that tournament.
And if I'm Brad Treliving, Brendan Shanahan, I want him to play. Like, barring, as you said, barring a setback. But I want him to be in that fight. I want him to be in those big moments in Canada, USA, and see what he's got. Like, I think it's a nice dress rehearsal for a team that's got so much riding on what's going to happen in April. I think it's for Marner, for Matthews, it's a great dress rehearsal to amp up the competitive juices and understand when the stakes are higher, you got to perform.
Well, and Nylander's on Sweden, so watch Finland win this thing.
Yeah.
Right, Finland will win. Jani Hakanpää will be coming back with his gold medal.
Dude, is he on the team?
Yeah, as of now, he's on the team. They haven't taking him off of it. It's possible they do that. He's not playing for the Leafs, so I don't know how you could expect him to play if you're Finnish. But as of right now, he's on the team, and I would guess they're waiting to see if he's going to return. That seems like their plan as of now. So, all right, Bruce Boudreau on that and more coming up in about 20 minutes. We've got a list still to get to today. Jesse Marsh on the show, head coach of the men's national team as well, coming up in the 6 p.m. hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Bruce Boudreau in about 15 minutes. This market's wild, man, because there was so much angst directed towards the Blue Jays in the front office, right? And we've talked a lot about it all throughout the winter. Then they signed Anthony Santander, and now I have people being like, I'm telling you, they're getting Pete Alonso. It's over. They've got Alonso. He's coming, and then Scherzer's going to come.
Yeah.
And, that's all. One signing, and people are like, no, this is happening. Like, the Jays are getting everybody.
Yeah, but what does that mean if they got Scherzer and
Alonso? I don't know. It makes them a better team for sure. Scherzer, I don't know what he's got left in his arm, but he's a legend. It would be interesting to see, whatever. But the point I'm making is, we've been burned so many times. Don't you still have your guard up if you're a Blue Jay fan?
Oh, yeah.
You just naturally believe because – listen,
Dude, that's how piss poor it's been that they're just jacked up about Max Scherzer and Pete Alonso, the polar bear dude.
I get it. Now he hits for some power, right? It can't. I'm not saying it can hurt. I think it'd be a decent signing. We'll see what the numbers look like. And I do believe they're in on him based on, Toronto reporters, including Scott Mitchell and others, saying, like, this is legit. They're kicking tires. But I'm sniffing out, this is my read on this. It's so loud all of a sudden with Pete Alonso. He's begging Steve Cohen and the Mets to call him and say, fine, we'll match it. Come, stay in New York.
Yeah.
Like, he's dying for the Mets to match it.
I'm shocked he's not staying for less. Like just saying, if you just come close, I'm staying. Like, just give me whatever. If it's the year less or whatever, I'm still going to be a Met.
Exactly. And listen, I think the Jays are in on him, but didn't we just go through this for like 2 months where they were being used as the team that was building
up the price.
Give me the extra year.
Leverage. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, are we witnessing this? So, like, why would you trust that it's going to happen until it happens? If it happens, okay, great. We'll react to it. That's awesome. But hook, line, and sinker, Jays fans are like, oh, yeah, Alonso's coming for sure.
But then if you get him, don't you have to ask yourself, O-Dog, like, why weren't there a bunch of other teams in on this too?
I've said that the last week.
Yeah.
Santander. How come the Dodgers didn't give that cat the extra year? No idea. The Jays did.
Yeah,
that's my most concerning thing about that signing.
And the Mets got nothing but money. Steve Cohen's got nothing but money, and suddenly doesn't want to pay this guy who's a fan favorite and is only 30 years old. There might be a reason for that.
Yeah. They had a bit of a down year last year.
The one-arm closer couldn't pass a physical anywhere. Guess where he passed one? He got it done here.
The Hoffman.
The Hockenpaw.
Jeff Hoffman-Paw. All right, hour 2 coming up. Bruce Boudreau will join us. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.